You think you're making your own decisions. You think you're choosing what to say, what to buy, who to trust. But what if I told you? Most of your reactions today were predicted and quietly engineered. There are 8 psychological traps being used on you daily, and the most dangerous part, you don't even notice when you step into them. Stay with me. The last one controls even strong men. Every day, you walk into rooms thinking you're alert. You scroll your phone believing you're in control. You talk to people assuming the conversation is equal. That's the illusion. The truth. Influence today is invisible. It doesn't force you. It frames you. It doesn't attack you. It nudges you. And while you believe you're choosing freely, someone else benefits from the direction you move. Tonight, we begin with the first 2 traps. And if you recognize yourself in them, don't look away, because comfort is the first chain. Let me ask you something dangerous. Who told you the world is fair? Was it your parents, your teachers, religious leaders, motivational speakers? Work hard. Be good. Treat others how you want to be treated. Sounds noble. But here's the question nobody asks. Do the powerful follow those rules? From childhood, you were trained to believe in equal standards. Wait your turn. Share your toys. Play by the rules. And while you were memorizing those commandments, someone else was learning leverage. History exposes this brutally. Look at Niccolò Machiavelli. He didn't write about how the world should work. He wrote about how it actually works. He observed rulers rise and fall, not because they were moral, but because they were strategic. He saw that leaders who clung to virtue alone were destroyed by those who understood power. And centuries later, nothing has changed. The rules preached to the masses are not the rules practiced by the elite. Fairness is taught downward. Strategy is taught upward. That's the first fracture in the illusion. You were rewarded for compliance. Gold stars, praise, approval. But notice the pattern. When you obeyed, you were celebrated. When you questioned, you were corrected. Slowly, your nervous system learned something subtle. Harmony equals safety. Disruption equals risk. This conditioning follows you into adulthood. In the workplace, you avoid speaking up. You don't negotiate aggressively. You accept. That's just how it is. Because somewhere inside, you still want the gold star. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Powerful individuals are not rewarded for fairness. They are rewarded for results. Consider Otto von Bismarck. He unified Germany not through fairness, but through calculated manipulation, strategic wars, and controlled narratives. He understood something most men never accept. Morality is a language. Power is the currency. And the one who controls the currency controls the outcome. Now ask yourself, how many times did you lose because you refused to bend? And how many times did someone else win because they did? We're just getting started. Here's where it becomes personal. You stayed late at work. You helped others without asking for credit. You believed loyalty would be reciprocated. And then someone else got promoted. Someone louder, more assertive, less concerned with being liked. That sting you felt? That's the moment the illusion cracked. Fairness makes you predictable, and predictability makes you controllable. In politics, business, even relationships. The one who detaches from emotional fairness gains strategic clarity. Take Napoleon Bonaparte. He rewarded loyalty when useful, discarded it when necessary. Cold? Yes. Effective? Absolutely. The world doesn't punish ruthlessness. It punishes weakness, disguised as virtue. And here's the cliffhanger. If fairness is the first chain, what keeps you voluntarily wearing it? The answer is more addictive than you think. What if I told you? Most of your decisions today were not about logic, but about approval. Humans evolved in tribes. Rejection meant death. Approval meant survival. Your brain still operates on that ancient software. When someone likes you, dopamine. When someone criticizes you, threat response. Now combine that biology with modern systems designed to exploit it. Social media platforms don't force you to scroll. They reward you. Likes, comments, notifications. Each one a tiny psychological treat. You're not browsing. You're being conditioned. And the more you chase validation, the easier you are to steer. Manipulators understand reinforcement loops. Give attention. Withdraw attention. Repeat. Suddenly you're adjusting behavior to regain approval. In relationships, this looks like hot and cold dynamics, inconsistent affection, sudden silence. In corporate life, small praise before extra workload. Recognition tied to compliance. You believe you're being appreciated, but subtly, you're being trained. Yes, this technique mirrors behavioral conditioning experiments. But here's the twist. You don't need a laboratory to see it. You just need awareness. Now imagine someone who doesn't need approval. How do you manipulate a man who doesn't crave validation? You can't. That's why emotional independence is dangerous. And that's why society discourages it. Criticism hits deeper than praise lifts. Why? Because your brain interprets social rejection as physical danger. So you soften your tone. You suppress opinions. You avoid confrontation. Not because you're weak, but because you're wired. The problem? Modern environments exploit ancient wiring, public shaming, cancel culture, reputation attacks. These are tools of social pressure. And if your identity depends on applause, you become controllable. Here's the uncomfortable realization. Many strong men are still slaves to perception. They don't fear failure. They fear embarrassment. And that fear is leverage. Power begins where validation ends. Imagine walking into a room without needing approval, speaking without craving applause, disagreeing without anxiety. Silence becomes your shield. Calm becomes your dominance. This is what Marcus Aurelius practiced. Control what you can. Detach from what you can't. Indifference to praise. Indifference to insult. When no one can emotionally move you, no one can steer you. But here's the cliffhanger most won't expect. Even if you escape fairness, even if you break validation addiction, there are still deeper traps, more subtle, more strategic. And one of them isolates you before destroying your influence. You'll see how niceness, urgency, and social division are weaponized against ambitious men every single day. And once you see it, you'll start noticing it everywhere. Stay sharp, because awareness is only the beginning. Power comes next. You don't lose power in wars. You lose it in conversations. Not through violence, through politeness, not through enemies, through people who call you bro. The traits you're most proud of, kindness, flexibility, loyalty, are often the exact handles used to control you. And the worst part? You defend the very behaviors that weaken you. Stay with me, because by the end of this chapter, you'll realize some of the nicest people in your life may have benefited the most from your silence. Let's start with a dangerous question. Why are nice guys always exhausted? They say yes when they mean no. They apologize when they're not wrong. They give more than they receive, and society applauds them. But quietly, they're being drained. In social dynamics, perception is everything. A man who constantly agrees signals something subtle. I won't resist. And resistance is what power respects. This doesn't mean aggression. It means presence. History reveals this pattern clearly. Look at Thomas Cromwell. He rose from obscurity to become one of the most powerful men in England, not because he was loud, but because he understood leverage. He negotiated ruthlessly when necessary and withheld compliance when it strengthened his position. Meanwhile, many nobles who relied purely on inherited status and polite alliances were quietly replaced. The agreeable man thinks he's avoiding conflict. In reality, he's avoiding respect, because people test boundaries instinctively. If you don't defend them, they expand into your territory. And once someone benefits from crossing your line without consequence, they will do it again. But this is just the surface. The real manipulation begins when guilt enters the room. You've heard it before. I thought you were different. After everything I've done for you, I guess I'll just handle it myself. These aren't requests. They're pressure tactics wrapped in disappointment. Guilt is one of the oldest psychological levers in human interaction. Religious systems used it. Governments used it. Families use it. It works because it attacks identity. You don't want to be the bad guy. So, you comply. Now, here's the dramatic irony. The manipulator accuses you of selfishness while actively serving their own self-interest, and you feel guilty. That's the inversion of power. Consider Catherine de' Medici. She survived one of the most volatile political periods in European history, not through brute force, but through emotional maneuvering, calculated alliances, and strategic manipulation of perception. While others fought openly, she moved invisibly. Power often hides behind softness, and unless you recognize it, you'll confuse manipulation for vulnerability. But what happens when you stop responding emotionally? That's where controlled ruthlessness begins. Ruthlessness is misunderstood. It's not cruelty. It's clarity without apology. It's the ability to say no, without explanation, without over-justifying, without seeking permission. The most powerful individuals don't over-explain their boundaries. They state them and move on. Because every extra word is an invitation to negotiate your standards. When this is where most men fail, they fear being disliked more than being disrespected, and that fear becomes visible. But once you reduce emotional leakage, people recalibrate around you, and that shift leads us directly into the next weapon used against you: scarcity. Here's a question. How many bad decisions did you make because you felt rushed? Exactly. Pressure short-circuits intelligence, and the modern world manufactures urgency like a factory. Limited offer. Last chance. Decide now. If you don't act, you'll miss out. Scarcity creates emotional heat, and emotional heat melts logic. Sales psychology has known this for decades. When time shrinks, compliance increases. But this isn't just about products. It's about relationships. If you don't commit now, I'm leaving. It's about workplaces. We need your answer immediately. It's about social status. Everyone's already doing it. The one who controls tempo controls outcome. Look at George Washington. In the American Revolutionary War, he often retreated strategically rather than react impulsively. He understood that survival and patience could exhaust a stronger opponent. He refused to be emotionally rushed into destruction. Contrast that with leaders who charged impulsively into battle for pride. Impatience is expensive, and manipulators know it. FOMO is not weakness, it's evolutionary wiring. Opportunity equals survival. Loss equals threat. So when you see others advancing, earning, traveling, succeeding, your brain interprets it as falling behind. And suddenly, you're chasing. Not because it aligns with your strategy, but because it aligns with your insecurity. The man who chases opportunity blindly becomes the opportunity for someone else. Because impatience makes you predictable, and predictable men are easy to position. But there's a countermove most people never develop. Patience as intimidation. Silence unsettles impulsive people. Delay unsettles manipulators. When you don't react immediately, you signal strength. You communicate abundance. Because only desperate men rush. Strategic pause forces others to reveal more, to overtalk, to negotiate against themselves. This is psychological aikido. You use their momentum against them. And once you master tempo, you begin to notice something darker. The strongest threats rarely attack you directly. They isolate you first. Which brings us to the most dangerous social strategy of all. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You are easier to control alone. Power structures understand this deeply. When someone sees you as competition, they rarely confront you immediately. They separate you, subtly. They shift group perception. They create distance. They seed doubt. By the time you realize what happened, support has thinned. This tactic is ancient. Empires used it constantly. Look at Genghis Khan. He fractured enemy alliances before launching major attacks. Smaller divided forces were easier to dominate than unified coalitions. Division weakens resistance, and in modern environments, reputation is the battlefield. Gossip feels harmless. It's not. It's narrative control. If someone can shape how others perceive you, they don't need to confront you. They've already reduced your influence. And here's the cruel irony. The victim often tries to defend themselves emotionally, which makes them look unstable. The smarter move? Calm, measured, strategic alliances. Because isolation only works if you stand alone. Power is rarely individual. It's networked. The man who cultivates quiet loyalty is harder to remove. Not loud alliances, not public displays, strategic connections built on mutual value. When others benefit from your presence, your absence becomes expensive. And expensive men are not easily attacked. That's the shift, from reactive to positioned, from emotional to strategic. But here's the final cliffhanger. Even if you master boundaries, even if you control tempo, even if you build alliances, there is still one battlefield left, and it's internal. Because the most dangerous trap doesn't come from others. It comes from your own emotions, and if you don't control them, everything you've learned collapses under pressure. We turn inward, and that's where the real transformation begins. You've seen the traps. You've seen the manipulation. You've seen how politeness, urgency, and division quietly drain power from ambitious men. But here's the twist. No one tells you. Even after you recognize every external tactic, you can still lose. Because the final battlefield isn't social. It's internal. And the most dangerous manipulator you will ever face knows your triggers better than anyone else. It's you. Stay with me. Because the last realization in this chapter is the one that separates observers from operators. Trap number 6, emotional reactivity. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. How many times have you said, "I don't care," while your body was burning with anger? That's the fracture. Power is not lost when someone insults you. It's lost when they can predict your reaction. Every human being has emotional tripwires: disrespect, rejection, being ignored, being challenged publicly, and manipulators probe for them. They make small comments. They test tone. They apply subtle pressure, not to attack, but to measure. The moment you react impulsively, you reveal your pressure points. History offers brutal proof. Look at Alexander the Great, a brilliant strategist, nearly unstoppable in conquest. Yet in moments of emotional volatility, he made decisions that damaged loyalty within his ranks. In one infamous incident, he killed a trusted companion during a drunken argument, an act driven not by strategy, but by wounded pride. Even greatness collapses under unchecked emotion. The stronger your ego, the easier it is to provoke you, because ego demands defense, and defense reveals insecurity. And the man who must prove strength often proves vulnerability instead. So how do you reverse this? By mastering controlled expression. Silence is unsettling, especially in moments designed to provoke. When someone tries to bait you and you respond with calm neutrality, you break their rhythm. You become unreadable. And unreadable men are dangerous. This is what made leaders like Saladin formidable. During the Crusades, he was known not just for military strategy, but for composure. Even in victory, he showed restraint. Even in tension, he maintained emotional discipline. Restraint amplifies authority. The man who reacts loudly believes he looks powerful. The man who stays calm actually is, because calm signals options, and options signal leverage. But emotional control alone is not enough. There's a deeper layer. Detachment. Detachment is not coldness. It's independence from outcome. When you don't cling, you don't beg. When you don't beg, you don't shrink. This applies everywhere. Negotiations, relationships, status games. The person less emotionally invested controls the frame. And here's the harsh truth. Most manipulation works because you care too much. Too much about being liked. Too much about winning. Too much about proving something. Detachment removes hooks. And when there are no hooks, there is nothing to pull. But as you build emotional control, a new risk appears. Information. Because power is not just about what you feel. Trap number 7. The information extraction game. Here's a question that will change how you speak. Why do people ask so many personal questions? Curiosity. Sometimes. Leverage. Often. In modern culture, vulnerability is marketed as strength. Be open. Share your truth. Let people in. And yes, connection matters. But unfiltered disclosure? That's ammunition. The more someone knows about your fears, your ambitions, your insecurities, the easier it becomes to position themselves around you. Look at J. Edgar Hoover. He understood the value of information so deeply that he built power, not through public charisma, but through files. Knowledge of secrets gave him leverage over politicians and public figures alike. Information shifts balance silently. The talkative man feels powerful because he dominates the conversation. The quiet man leaves with control because he gathers data. Oversharing satisfies ego. Restraint builds strategy. Speak less. Watch more. People reveal themselves when comfortable. They reveal their insecurities, their biases, their desires, and once revealed, patterns emerge. The silent observer doesn't interrupt. He collects. This was a trait often attributed to Abraham Lincoln. He listened extensively before speaking, absorbing the perspectives of rivals and allies alike. By the time he responded, he wasn't reacting. He was positioning. Listening expands advantage. Talking distributes it. And when you combine observation with selective disclosure, you create mystique, which leads to the next layer. Narrative control. People don't respond to truth. They respond to perception. If you reveal everything about yourself, you give others the ability to define you. But if you reveal selectively, you shape the frame. Mystery commands attention. Scarcity of information increases perceived value. Why? Because humans chase what they cannot fully read. Men who try hardest to be understood are often understood the least. Men who reveal less are discussed more. Silence creates gravity, and gravity attracts attention. But even mastery over emotion and information isn't the final level. There's a deeper trap: dependency, and this one has destroyed stronger men than you. Trap number 8, the dependency web. Ask yourself honestly, who do you rely on? Financially, emotionally, socially? Dependency feels comfortable until it becomes leverage. The moment someone knows you need them, power shifts. It doesn't matter if it's money, validation, or opportunity. Need creates negotiation weakness. History illustrates this repeatedly. Consider King Louis XVI. He relied heavily on unstable financial systems and political alliances he could not control. When pressure mounted during the French Revolution, that dependency became fatal. When systems you rely on collapse, so does your authority. The comfort of dependence often hides the seeds of vulnerability. Independence, on the other hand, feels lonely at first, but it compounds into strength. Self-sufficiency is not isolation. It's leverage creation. Multiple income streams, diverse skills, emotional regulation, network depth. The more replaceable you are, the less power you hold. The more optional your presence becomes, the stronger your negotiating position. Scarcity works both ways. Earlier, you saw how scarcity manipulates you. Now you weaponize it. By becoming scarce, by becoming valuable, by becoming difficult to substitute. Unreplaceable doesn't mean loud. It means essential. You solve problems others cannot. You remain calm under pressure. You don't leak emotion. You don't overshare strategy. And slowly, your presence carries weight. Rooms shift slightly when you enter. Conversations slow when you speak, because you are no longer reactive. You are positioned. And here's the final dramatic irony of this entire journey. The world didn't change. You did. The traps still exist. Manipulation still happens. Scarcity, validation, division, they're all still active, but they no longer control you. Because the ultimate shift wasn't external dominance. It was internal sovereignty. Now here's the question that determines everything. Will you apply this? Or will this become another video you understood intellectually, but never embodied? Because knowledge without integration is just entertainment. And entertainment does not command respect. The next time someone tries to rush you, watch your pulse. The next time someone tries to guilt you, watch your breath. The next time someone tries to provoke you, watch your stillness. That stillness, that's power. And once you taste it, you will never crave approval the same way again. You will never rush decisions the same way again. You will never reveal yourself the same way again. And when that shift locks in, you stop being the man who walks into traps. You become the man others must calculate around. Now the only question left is this: are you ready to be calculated or respected? Choose carefully, because the world is always watching.